let that be a fair warning to all of those in high places who think that they're above the law.
What is fueling my soul right now is Trump and his abuses against immigrants, against women, against our environment.
President Trump was almost on the verge of bankruptcy, and then all of a sudden he was flush with money.
We must do our job to ensure that the man currently occupying the Oval Office is held accountable to any and everything he has done.
So that's Letitia James. By the way, that is direct audio. We went back, found audio from when she was campaigning. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, going after Trump yesterday in a really what seems to be, by all legal accounts, now I ain't no attorney. I barely have a grasp on the English language, but by all accounts, this is silly for several reasons. Number one, on the very merit of this civil lawsuit, seems to be baseless. She's saying it was fraud and he was defrauding people. And most attorneys that I saw last night on the TV, no, there's nothing doing. But this audio, I want to highlight that. That audio, that is stuff we pulled from her while she was campaigning. Some of that audio while she was campaigning for office. Some of that audio is from her campaign commercials. She campaigned as the Attorney General going after the President of the United States. That is my campaign, and I would think and I would hope that anybody with any, regardless of party affiliation, would realize, well, this is a crock of this. This is just insane. This is just crazy. It is so blatant. And then Trump last night. I can't wait till Hannity comes on today. He comes on 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right before the Randy Tobler show. On the TV show last night, Hannity was talking to Trump, and he asked Donald Trump about this lawsuit.
I actually thought that they would never bring a case, and she brought it. And the reason I thought, because she didn't have a case. I was of the impression she wanted to settle, but I had a problem because how do you pay something, even if it's a small amount of money, if you're not guilty?
He's saying, hey, I didn't do this. He thought, well, I'll settle. And we see this when it comes to high-stakes lawsuits. A lot of times, listen, it's going to cost us $1 million to fight this case. Let's pay him $500,000 and call it good.
Yeah, I mean, lawyers are expensive, and there are certain times, and beyond that, I mean, sometimes the PR implications of litigation, you know, there are other factors that would cause someone to want to settle.
Says our high-powered attorney over here, Stephanie Bell. How are you this morning?
I'm great.
Good to see you here. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you, sir.
John Marsh is here. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. Any other interesting react? I think here's what sums it up for me. Two things. Bill Barr. By the way, he said something incredible last night on Fox after this lawsuit came out. Fox News, they're talking to Bill Barr, and Bill Barr is saying, and what you're going to hear here in a second, yeah, this is BS. I mean, he didn't say BS, but that's what he said. But they asked him, like, well, some people, you know, you turned on Trump, but now you're backing him. The answer he gave, and I hope to do this at 6:50, writing it down. You got to hear what happened. Because, stop it, guys. 6:50.
Get out your crayon.
I'm writing it down. Here, and I want you, seriously, hear this audio, because he's asked, like, well, you turned against Trump and now you're backing him. The answer that he gave, my goodness, it was just incredidible. So hear that. So anyhow, Bill Barr talking about this lawsuit yesterday on Fox TV. Here's his take on it. And again, Bill Barr, you could say, I would say, you know, Bill Barr is about the facts. You say, well, he turned on Trump. Well, you can say that. Maybe Bill Barr is presenting facts as you see him just because the facts don't agree with my opinions and what I want them to be. It doesn't mean necessarily Bill Barr's turning on Trump.
And keep in mind, too, that they took about 5 or 6 seconds of a long interview with Bill Barr, and that's what played in that committee hearing that people are talking about, too.
It's hard for me not to conclude it's a political hit job. And this is a woman who campaigned for office saying that, promising she was going to go after Trump, which I think is a tremendous abuse of office to go headhunting and targeting individuals. So I think she was targeting Trump.
So, and he goes on to say, yeah, there's just nothing there. The committee thing you were referring to, Houseworth?
Well, the committee thing deals with their conservatives are upset with Mr. Barr because of some of the things that were were said during the January 6th hearings, and others have said no. They basically aired just a few sentences out of God knows how many hours of interviews or whatever. So, but whether he turned on him or not, I thought that comment he just made there was pretty. Basically, what he's saying is that she campaigned before any of this happened. Yeah. That he was already guilty. That's what he is saying.
Yeah. And we heard in the audio stuff from her campaign ads, stuff from her on the campaign trail. I'm getting Trump. I would think anybody with even just a little bit of common sense and a law degree would say, yeah, this is just incredibly stupid. Alan Dershowitz. Marsh, am I correct? Say Alan Dershowitz, highly sought after attorney. I mean, the guy he's a legend, I would guess, in legal circles, and you see him on all the national news networks. Again, maybe a guy who calls him like he sees him. He doesn't necessarily follow any kind of political affiliation. Would you say that's a reasonable assessment of Dershowitz?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Kevin Green, he's a guy, he lives here in mid-Missouri. 16 years in prison after a wrongful conviction. He joins us in studio 810 this morning. Alan Dershowitz talking about the Attorney General lawsuit, the New York Attorney General lawsuit against Trump.
The first thing I would do if I were Trump's lawyers is move for the recusal and disqualification of Letitia James. I like Letitia James. She's a very nice person, but she campaigned on the promise to get Trump before seeing any evidence. And so she is just fulfilling a campaign promise. You can't have prosecutors even civilly prosecuting a defendant if they've made a campaign promise that they have to fill. They're not neutral.
Yep. Couldn't say that. But I love this, though.
Of Letitia James. I like Letitia James. She's a very nice person, but
I like Letitia James. But, and on this show, that's a big but, and we love big butts here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So that's what's happening on a national level. Some of the highlights, Trump was on Sean Hannity yesterday. Hannity's here at 2. I'm anxious to get some of his insights, but Trump responding to the lawsuit, talking about Ukraine, a lot of cool things. We'll feature some of that throughout the morning. Coming up 6:35, 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford he's the Kansas City TV guy. He's going to be joining us here in the studio. Mr. Hausworth, highlight Jefferson City yesterday in your mind?
I think in terms of the bills, the fact that both chambers approved an agricultural bill is a big deal. They're identical bills, so basically that part of the special session is on its way to the governor's desk. And there's still there's movement right now, obviously, on the tax cut. It's $1 billion, and we'll have to wait to see all the specifics. The House obviously should take that up maybe this week. The governor's confident that will go through. I'll tell you, there was a comment from a Democratic state representative, Peter Meredith, on Twitter. I don't know if people caught it, but he suggested that he thought the Republicans maybe were doing this to draw attention away from abortion. Now on Twitter, take a look at what he said. He's saying that maybe they're doing it so their buddies in agriculture can get big tax credits. In other words, that's something that, and he had several retweets on that. The bigger part of that bill is the tax cut bill, and that still is not been passed yet.
This is Minority Floor Senate Leader, Democrat John Rizzo.
Senate Democrats are here to fight for working families, not help the rich CEOs with their second mansion. We support middle-class tax relief, not corporate handouts.
So the Republicans are bad for trying to give by the way, these are your tax dollars. And they're really, I think if I boil this down, think about this. If you boil it down, they're just saying, hey, okay, we don't need this much money. Here's some back. Marsh, are you any good at the math? Sorry. Let me stop. I don't mean to interrupt, but for a longest time, we know here on the show, we're always running behind, and really it's, to you listening, probably you have no idea that we're running behind, but here some people get, there's reasons that we got to be on time, and so we're trying to do it, and we're starting today to be on time, and anyhow, so that's what, thanks guys. Go on, Mars. You were making a pretty important point about something that's going to affect our bank accounts.
So to what extent I'm going to get in trouble for not keeping us on time, but does it matter that the bills are separated? I mean, it's kind of like which comes first, because you think that invites some negotiating next week, John, with, because I think the Democrats might say, well, we're okay with the tax credit, but we're not okay with the ag bill. And I think there was some thought that they might be all looped into one bill, but now that they're in two bills, does that create game playing?
So I've been trying to do the math. Let's say Stephanie Bell makes $500,000 a year here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That's the salary we pay her, $500,000 a year.
Right.
And we tax that. It's taxed right now at 5.3%. But then we lower that to 4.95%, which is what's happening here. Mm-hmm. How much more money of that $500,000 of the 500?
You're asking me, but you said you did the math.
No, I said I can't do the math. I've been trying to do it, and I can't. Let's do this. We'll get ready for the daily D.C. rundown. Now that we've looked at what's happening underneath the circus tent in Jefferson City, let's go to our nation's capital city. Daily D.C. rundown coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS. What are we peeking at this morning there, Steph?
Well, yesterday the House passed the presidential election
This bill has benefited from a wide range of input from constitutional experts, including many conservative constitutional experts, jurists, and scholars.
Liz Cheney yesterday on the floor in D.C. talking about this electoral, the changes to the electoral thing that Stephanie's going to fill you in. I love that because a lot of people support this, including conservatives, kind of like I just did with, look, who's even backing Trump on this lawsuit against Letitia. Even Bill Barr, even Alan Dershowitz says that Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, is full of crap. Liz is doing the same thing. Even conservatives approve of this. That's getting us into today's daily D.C. Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
So there's been a version of this Electoral Reform Act, both in the House and the Senate, and the House voted yesterday, and it did have some support from conservatives, but a very specific set of conservatives. And in that way, so it basically, clarifies that the vice president's role in certifying the election is ministerial. It's just like a pomp and circumstance day is what they want. And 9 conservatives voted in favor of it. Funny, though. All 9 of them. What do you think they have in common?
Keep this in your back pocket today when this comes up. My goodness. And say, did you hear what Stephanie Bell said on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning?
So none of the 9 are on the ballot in November.
They're not up for re-election.
Yeah, they've either already lost their primary or they're choosing not to run again. And so they don't have to face the music for this vote because they know if they made that vote, I think, and then had to run for re-election, they would have problems in their home districts.
I love that, man. That's a gem. I love this, by the way, regarding Trump stuff still. Sean says New York Attorney General believes Trump broke federal law. There are also people who believe that we did not land on the moon. And there are also some people that think the world is flat.
So other stuff happening in D.C. yesterday. The Senate ratified an international agreement about greenhouse gases. I'm going to get this word wrong, but it's hydrofluorocarbons, but we're just going to call them HFCs. Did I get that right?
I'm nominating you for a winner of the week tomorrow, 8:35 on a Feel Good Friday for nailing it, Steph.
So this international agreement requires participating nations to phase down production of HFCs by 85%. Apparently, Biden talked about this in his campaigning, and so we ratified this amendment or this international agreement yesterday, and we're all about climate change now, not about borders, not about people getting murdered.
Fentanyl, coming into mid-Missouri, killing kids here. Yeah.
Okay. Also, I guess the White House is also having more parties. Didn't they have a party recently celebrating? Right after a school shooting, celebrating something about guns, and they called it a party, and it was really horrible.
It was horrible, and then the other party they had, I think, was last week. Joe Biden out there on the White House lawn going, man, look at what I've done with the economy. CNN is carrying it live, and then CNN breaks away from the coverage of the president massaging how good of a job he's done on the economy to say, oh, by the way, latest inflation numbers are out and they suck. They broke away from that speech to give the numbers live. That's how White House rolls when it comes to partying.
Well, and now they're having a party for the folks in North Carolina, and what they're saying is this is a new effort underway to show local governments what we can do for you. So they'll be hosting folks from North Carolina to highlight funding opportunities and coronavirus relief, infrastructure dollars, that kind of thing. And they're saying, hey, now that the pandemic is over, this opens up an opportunity for us to have a whole bunch of people at the White House. And I'm like, no, now that you realize you have a problem in November, you're thinking, hey, maybe we should start reaching out to folks in the states because we've got a big problem. I don't think it has anything to do with the virus being over, the pandemic being over. I think it has more to do with they're scared out of their minds in November and they're thinking, oh no, we need these folks' help. Let's start lobbying basically the states to say that, we've done a good job for you.
Pandemic is over, but we're still forcing military personnel to get vaccinations. Still forcing them to do that, not letting them making their choices. As Americans, they should be able to make that choice. And there are Americans in the military who are fighting for us to be able to keep that choice that the Biden administration is yanking from us. These people don't make any sense, man. Do you hear what we're saying?
And they've been having parties all along, right? Whenever they choose to, but now they're saying, oh, the virus is over. We can have people from different states here.
My goodness. The insanity. Coming up just a few minutes from now. I want to get Mark Alford. He is running for the 4th Congressional District seat. He wants to go to D.C. That's a seat currently held by Congresswoman Hartsfield. I want to get his reaction to some of the things that are happening there now, and how would he handle this stuff? He joins us in studio 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
A-. 50-50.
C?
B+.
A B or C?
I would give him a B.
I would give Biden a B.
He's probably getting a solid B, average, just like every other. I'd probably give a B to every president. They do their best.
I would say probably like a B, right in the middle. The things could be better, but things could be a lot worse.
On a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, Joe Biden, I wouldn't give him a grade because he's not the only person responsible for the economy.
So that's people in giving Joe Biden some really lofty praise for his handling of the economy. And you might be going, what the heck is going on? 6:36 in the morning, and I'm listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and I'm hearing Stephanie Bell and John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah, Branden Rathert, and there's people giving Biden good marks on the economy. We need that C word here. Context. The context is those are people in New York and San Francisco saying, yes, Joe's doing a good job. And the one woman there at the end who's trying to save face, well, the president's not bull. When you're the president, when you get praise, it's under your leadership, you get the praise. And when things go bad, you also take the blame. Wanted to bring in 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford. A lot of folks know him as the Kansas City TV guy in this neck of the woods. Running for the seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. Glad you could be here. How do you react to it? Because I want to find out what you're finding on the campaign trail. Those are people, Biden is doing a good job.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the 4th Congressional District thinks that's the way. Really, I think he's auditing the class. I think he's so checked out. When you spend 140 days on vacation, you haven't been to the wall to see the crisis there that you created. And you've really abdicated your responsibility when it comes to our economy. You've really thrown us into shambles, and really in a year and a half, really kind of flushed the toilet on what we had going here in America. I would grade him on a pass-fail basis, and he has failed the American people.
It is beyond fail, and we've seen what gas prices have done just here in mid-Missouri since, I think, Tuesday. We've been monitoring this. People have been texting, and it was 3:39 Monday afternoon. And then we played audio of somebody on MSNBC saying, but no, listen, the gas prices, they've been going down, and less than 24 hours later, boom. They're going back up, and yes, the blame lays at the feet of Joe Biden. And I want to get your impression on this, too. Because I think this is a valuable point we're making as it relates to fuel prices, Mr. Alford. People say, no, it's because Russia invaded Ukraine. General Todd Walters, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, addressed a House Armed Services Committee, and he talked about that.
I think he felt like he had popular support.
Let me mention this. The question was, why do you think Putin invaded Ukraine now?
I think he felt like he had popular support of the citizens of Russia. I also felt like he was attempting to take advantage of fissures that could have appeared in NATO as a result of the post-Afghanistan environment.
So that is Biden. That is clear. That is a point of fact. Biden's sloppy pullout in Afghanistan. Actually, when he was elected, when he took office, tragic events of January the 20th of 2021, we lost any kind of respectability on the worldwide stage. Putin saw that. I mean, that's what's happening. And I think we need to message that to the in-betweens, regretful Biden voters, the independents, the unsure.
There's some people who did not like President Trump's style of governing, his style of leadership, but he was a strong president, and the people on the world stage respected his authority, respected his direction. I think they didn't know the direction he was headed, which kind of also led to people respecting him, just not knowing what was going to happen. With President Biden, you know what's going to happen. He is going to throw in the towel, just like he did in Afghanistan, abandon our allies there, and leave 13 service members to die there at the Kabul airport. That's one of the reasons I decided to get in the race, one of the final decisions last year. I was sitting there watching that, and I thought, I have had enough. I have got to do something to try to save our country. I don't know what I can do. I've never served my nation. I've never signed up. never taken the oath of allegiance to the Constitution to protect and defend it, but I'm going to do that now.
So you spent some time, you've been spending some time in D.C. lately, and, to what extent, we were talking earlier about what they were doing yesterday, and they were passing stuff, the Electoral Reform Act, so stuff dealing with January 6th, some stuff dealing with climate change, and, I don't hear anybody in Missouri talking about those things. So how do you, and I feel like some people in D.C., they just get in their little bubble, and so are you, when you go there, are you seeing that same thing? Are they out of touch with what you're hearing here in Missouri when you're out on the campaign trail?
Quite the contrary. The leaders that I've met with, the congressional members that I've met with, the people who have different interests there in Washington that I've met with, they're all asking what is important to our voters because they know that the 4th Congressional District, we are the heart of Missouri. We are the heart of America, and really the heartbeat of the conversation of what goes on. The extreme positions are on the coast, and you know that, the West Coast and the East Coast. In the same way, it's on the West Coast and the East Coast of Missouri, St. Louis and Kansas City. And for a long time, I've been saying the loudest, strongest voices coming from Missouri and in the national media and in Washington, D.C., unfortunately have been that of Cori Bush and Emanuel Cleaver. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you today, those are not the true voices of Missouri.
It's like we just heard in this montage we played as we started our visit with you. We've got people giving Biden B's and B pluses on the economy. Have you lost your mind? All right, our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS, 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing to consider. Of course, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to take up that case, and so it made it really nullified that argument. But I know the Texas Attorney General at the time had brought this about, and other attorney generals really fighting for integrity when it comes to our elections. Because what happened is, in this man-made virus, I do believe it was a man-made virus, and the subsequent pandemic that came about and the crisis mode that it sent the world into, because of that, 4 states really circumvented the U.S. Constitution, which really leaves it up to the state legislators to set voting procedures. And what happened was the executive took over that authority in each of those states, changed the voting procedures, and therefore made it more easy for irregularities to happen. Look, even if you don't, I know you probably have seen 2,000 Mules, and one reporter asked me, do you believe what was in that? I said, well, even if you believe 10% of what was in that movie, we are in trouble as a nation. We have got to set the course right. We've got to have election integrity. We've got to make sure that only people who are voting legally who are allowed to vote are ones who should be voting. I believe everyone who should be voting should vote. I think that's our responsibility as American, but we don't need the ballot harvesting. We don't need the drop boxes. We don't need the mail-in voting to the degree that we had it. And I think it leads to a lot of open doors and a lot of opportunities for fraud.
What's your reaction? As a matter of fact, I was just in Jeff City, Secretary of State's office, Jay Ashcroft, a couple weeks ago, and I go in, and it's the League of Chick Voters, and they're out there with the League of Women. Sorry, League of Women Voters.
That was a dirty look you gave.
It just got chilly in here.
Woo! Oh my!
Now my wife is sitting out in the car, and she was probably yelling as well. So you better straighten up.
League of Women Voters.
Yes.
They're outside as I'm walking into the Secretary of State's office holding up signs, and they're protesting this voter ID, and they're saying, safe elections now, safe elections now. Doesn't the voter ID law help enhance the safety of voting?
That's what we want. And the argument has been for a very long time that it's discriminatory for someone to be forced to go down and get a state ID with your picture on and tell you where you live. Now, folks, I'm here to tell you, if you can't get down there to wherever to get that, how are you going to get to vote? The same people who are taking people to vote who don't have voter ID or haven't in the past should be taking their friends and neighbors down to get an ID. I'll do it. If you live in my district and you're having problems, let's get you an ID. Yep. You got to have one to fly.
Local state rep Cherie Tolson Rice, she's been big on this for years prior to the voting stuff becoming a super big issue. Jay Ashcroft has always said, even prior to, they have a campaign right now. So we will make sure that you get an ID. It's just not really that difficult. Are you able to? I know you're anxious to get home. I want to hear what you did in town yesterday. Can you hang out for a few more minutes? Okay,
I'd love to.
Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District candidate, running for the seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. He's joining us. Wake up Mid-Missouri this morning. Want to find out. I'm always fascinated because the Dobbs decision, which I think is going to be a player in this election. I don't know that I'm in the majority on that thought process. The other thing I want to ask, since you're a longtime TV dude, I want to see if you can offer Steph some tips for being on camera here.
because he knew that I was going to take tremendous retribution, or he felt that way, whether it's 10% or 5%.
Did you tell him in no uncertain terms you would?
I'd rather not say, but the answer is yes.
Donald Trump last night, Sean Hannity on Fox. Sean Hannity here 2 o'clock this afternoon, anxious to see what kind of insight he might give with his sit-down interview that he had with Trump. And I bring that up. 4th Congressional District Congressman, Congress candidate.
Republican
nominee. He's a candidate, Republican nominee, Mark Alford in Kansas City. He was known as the conservative TV guy. Around here, you were known as the KC TV guy. Because we had some popular folks in the race. Rick Bratton. We had Taylor Burks, local guy. So that was kind of what you got labeled as. And I got to give kudos to what Taylor Burks has been doing for your campaign. What has he been doing to help you?
Incredible gentleman, former county clerk here in Boone County. In fact, his wife, Elise, and Leslie and I had dinner last night. They had to kick us out of the restaurant. We were there for so long. We were the last people there.
Where'd you go?
Hold on. Owl something? Barred Owl?
Oh, the Barred Owl.
Oh, yeah, it was really good. Shrimp and grits. Oh, amazing. Anyway, but I digress. I want to back up a couple of months because one of our first events that we went to in Lafayette County, Lafayette County is now in the 4th Congressional District where they belong, and they had a forum there, and Taylor Burks, that's the first time I had met him. That was back in mid-January. But I had known of what he had done when we were researching this campaign. They thought he was going to be one of the front runners in the race, and indeed he was. And so I was eager to meet him. We hit it off and started talking in the back of the room and kept that up. We would go to forums and we would listen to other people speak, and we would talk about our family in the back and just have some good personal communication with one another. And we became friends and exchanged text numbers. I know that sounds a little weird in a political cycle that can be destructive, but I think we really built a constructive relationship. Became friends and encouraged one another along the way. If I gave a good speech, he would say, "Hey, great speech," and vice versa. And so I was very honored that now that he's picked up the baton to help campaign for us and really bring us to Boone County. I did not spend a lot of time here because he was from here, and I knew it was going to be difficult to beat him in this county, and did not beat him. He ended up winning it, but I want to get to know people here. And so yesterday we spent the entire day. We started off with a roundtable of ag people here in the community, met at the Cattlemen's Association, heard their concerns. We talked with 3 circuit judges there at the county courthouse. We then met individual families and people who had vested interest in what's going on in America that he knew and respected. We met with the leaders of the Boone Health Center, the hospital here, and talked about some of their concerns with health care and where the direction they're going. And then we ended up with a fundraiser last night at the country club there, Old Hawthorne.
Yeah. So when you're chatting with these folks here in the 4th Congressional, and by the way, I want to mention real quick, Blaine Lukemeyer, rep from the 3rd Congressional District.
Right.
Yeah, he was honored with the National Federation of Independent Businesses. He received Guardian of Small Business Award for what he does for small businesses. But when you were in town last night, you're talking to people, the concerns of voters, people that would potentially vote for you. Is it the economy, stupid?
It is the economy. Everyone is concerned about the inflation rate at 8.3% that we have now and is back in the 2s when President Trump was in office. And the direction when you have eggs up 39%, that's crazy.
Bacon.
Progressive
I love bacon.
soup. The cost for a can of Progressive soup anymore.
But it is a unifying issue because, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're meeting with the farmers or you're meeting with healthcare CEOs.
Yes.
It affects us all.
Yeah, labor costs, overall costs have gone up almost 15% in the healthcare industry, and what they're able to bill Medicaid, they're not, the government's not saying, hey, here's more money to cover that cost. And so there's a real disparity in what you take in and what you put out. And that's, I think everyone's doing the best they can. The other big issue is the labor shortage. It's getting people back to work who want to work and do a good job. And everyone has had that concern that I've spoken with.
GOP nominee for the 4th Congressional District seat, Mark Alford. That seat currently held by Vicky Hartzler. Mark Alford joining us this morning on Wake Up, Mid-Missouri.
No, it has not. I do believe we've got to have compassion for women who find themselves in the position. We've got to make adoption more affordable to middle-class families. We've got to make it easier. We've got to provide resources for women who in crisis pregnancy centers that we've been working with, the Shiloh Center in Harrisonville and also the Rachel's House in Independence, Missouri, because there are alternatives to abortion. I think what's happened in this whole debate with the Dobbs decision, I think people have lost sight of the real extreme views in abortion. And that's the Democrats. I mean, when you're talking about being able to abort a baby up until the time of birth and have the government pay for it, there is nothing more extreme than that.
You should hear some of these Democrat politicians in places like Pennsylvania that are like okay with that kind of stuff. And I don't mean to cut you off. We're just running out of time. Do you think, quick, because I want to get to some camera tips that you can offer to Stephanie Bell because of all your years on TV. And you can watch our show on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook pages. We're on YouTube, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Do you think the Dobbs decision has changed kind of the shift? The majority of Americans prior to the Dobbs decisions for years have consistently been okay with some type of abortion. Do you think that shifted a little bit and hurt conservatives that are running for offices?
I think the Democrats want to shift the direction that way. They want to talk about abortion because they know that they have the most extreme position. And if they can make the Republicans seem extreme, then they've washed their hands clean of their position and trying to win people over. I think if you really search your heart, people in America know that abortion is wrong.
Tip for we've got 15 seconds. Big tip for Stephanie on how can she look even better on camera on our YouTube channel.
Well, that's a loaded question because I don't think you can improve on anything that Stephanie has going for her.
Mark Alford, man. Thanks for joining us in the studio. We'll get your websites and all that coming up about 10 minutes from now. And Bill Barr's response on Fox yesterday to a question, my goodness, that's coming up 7:10.
someone watching right now who says it looks like you're coming to the former President Trump's defense when many, including The Atlantic recent write-up, saying that you've turned on the former president.
So that's Sandra Smith, Fox News. She's talking to Bill Barr. Bill Barr responding to this BS civil lawsuit filed by the Attorney General Letitia James of New York going after Trump. She asked him, she says, well, you know, and I love the phrasing there. She's right, the phrasing. Well, some people would say, some think, you think that. Some people would think that you've turned on Trump, but now you're backing him. You got to hear how he answered the question because it's lovely, I think. And it's not just about this thing with the New York Attorney General civil lawsuit. It's not about that. I think it's a bigger picture thing happening here. And I'm going to play that for you, I promise, here in like less than 2 minutes. But I want to go to this first. Big thing to keep in mind, Letitia James, Attorney General, New York. She's saying Trump committed fraud and was ripping off money and all this stuff. Here are these are cuts that I've put together, went back and found from Letitia James campaigning for New York Attorney General and some actual audio from some of her campaign ads.
Let that be a fair warning to all of those in high places who think that they're above the law.
What is fueling my soul right now is Trump and his abuses against immigrants, against women, against our environment.
President Trump was almost on the verge of bankruptcy, and then all of a sudden he was flush with money.
We must do our job to ensure that the man currently occupying the Oval Office is held accountable to any and everything he has done.
That was her campaign. She wasn't running for president. She was running for the Attorney General of New York, where Trump resides or used to reside, and business dealings there. That was her campaign. Elect me in this very progressive, far left-leaning Democrat state. Elect me, and I will do what you want me to do, and that is to go after the guy. The Attorney General, what's the best? They're kind of the top legal dog in any given state. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. Phew, pulled that one out of my hat. Brian, quit agreeing. So it wasn't about going after the law. Meanwhile, you look at the number of people that are released onto the streets in New York because the Attorney General, whatever, prosecutors don't do their job. Her thing, instead of, upholding the law and go after, I'm going to go after the president. That's my campaign. Stunning.
She and every other Democrat. And sports aren't my thing, but whenever one more person goes after Trump, I just imagine him with the ball running down the field, and he's the guy that has like 7 people hanging on him and they just can't bring him down, and he just keeps moving forward, and it just makes them look so bad because, people have done the list of how many lawsuits he's involved in and how many people are after him and how many people are trying to bring him down. And right now, people are calling him like Teflon Trump. He can do almost anything and his numbers don't change. It's insane. But I think he's so authentic and so himself and so relatable that and people in my position, I think, and people here in Missouri are just tired of it. Just, and Democrats are just beside themselves to try to find any way to bring him down, but they're failing miserably.
They just keep going and picking. It's just all about Trump.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
By the way, I've got like 3 minutes of that, but we don't have time for that because we're trying to stay on time today. Marsha, I want to ask, do you think, is this it for real this time? No, really. Is this the end? Is this it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the authority of the New York Attorney General is, but I think, the question is, are you, I think always in these situations are you using your official office for political purposes? And I think that's where a lot of these Democrats have really crossed the line. I think that's where the line got crossed in Mar-a-Lago is, are you using your, power for political gain? And I think, in certain circumstances, they've crossed the line.
Donald Trump's done. He's done. There's no question about that. He's done.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over.
It's over.
The wall's closing in.
The wall's closing in.
This is going to be the Achilles heel.
But no, really. Is this it, John? For real? This stuff for real? You think this is it?
But they're turning him into a hero. Again, back to the football analogy. If you dodge one guy and you score the touchdown, you're not a hero. But if you're the guy who crosses the line with 10 guys hanging on you, you're the hero, right? You're suddenly viral on ESPN, and that's what they're doing to Trump. They're making him a hero.
874-9398. And I do want to highlight this great answer Bill Barr served with Trump. The answer he gave on Fox yesterday, people said, well, you turned on Trump and now you're backing him and calling this New York Attorney General lawsuit BS. His answer was just incredible. But first, I want to chat with David at 874-9390. David, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What's on your mind?
This is something that just struck me from the get-go on this. It's got more to do, to me, I think. He challenged status quo. So now we must send a signal to everybody. This is what's going to happen to you if you try to do what he did. Then that's why they're going after everybody that knows he talked to him or whatever and keep this up, because how many people could actually weather this? And this is just sending them a message. Don't try this again.
Amen. David, thank you for being a part of the show here on 93.9, the Eagle and News Radio, 104.5 KWOS. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. I'm joined by Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Camera tips. Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District candidate, longtime Kansas City TV guy, was in studio with us, gave Steph, and he gave a beautiful answer. Steph, we asked for tips for Steph. Being on camera. Dude was on camera in Kansas City for a lot of years.
Yes, he was.
And he says there's nothing that she can do to look better because...
Wow.
It's unfair because don't those TV people have folks who touch up their makeup and their hair before they go on?
Good Morning America in those places, yes, but in the other markets, no, they have to do that themselves.
But
yeah. I don't think I had to worry too much about makeup.
Did you put on makeup for Marissa Hollywood in between commercials when she was doing the news back in the day?
I don't think I'd do a good job at that.
Did Mark Alford have anything to say, tip-wise for you about flipping the bird on camera in the studio?
That's why you should be watching. If you get a chance, let's say you're a small counterfront business, cleaners, I don't know. We've had like auto parts stores in some rural areas in parts of Cole County. They're putting the TV up.
Places with a waiting room.
Waiting rooms.
Dentists.
The other thing, here's how to use the Wake Up Mid-Missouri YouTube channel, like in the house, running around, getting everybody ready for school. They're continuing that 80 celebration week at Helias and Columbia Public Schools. They're working on how they can make test scores not so hard, but people are putting it up in their homes in the morning on the smart TV, getting the local news, getting the big things like Missouri moving forward with tax cuts. Big story there yesterday, Marsh.
Yeah, it really is, John, and it's complex. You've also got that's exactly right. You've got the fact that the governor right now is basically a moving goalpost as to what the legislature is going to do. The House can take it up, but, we could end up in a conference if they decide to, make amendments or whatever, so we'll see what happens. The agriculture bill, basically the bill that passed in the House and Senate, stayed intact, so that bill is on its way to the governor's desk. But that's a big change, because if you remember, the governor wanted one bill, and now it's been split into two, and we had Peter Meredith yesterday on Twitter, a state representative from St. Louis, suggesting that this is basically to help more or less help the Republicans' cronies, if you will, I think is how he phrased it, getting these ag tax credits. So that was he voted against it. A lot of Democrats, though, voted present on that agriculture bill. As I counted, at least 15 didn't vote for it, didn't vote against it, voted present. Then a lot of folks were absent, too.
Wouldn't that be cool if you had a job, like you just show up, I'm here today. That sounds like the Democrats in Jefferson City. Sounds like they were quiet quitting yesterday. Well, just present. Wouldn't that be lovely, Marjorie? I'm here, but I'm not going to do much. I'm a quiet quitter. That's what. Welcome into the show. Let's see, we have producer Hannah, Brian Houseworth, John March. My name is Branden Rathert. By the way, trying to give some meaningful definition to these tax cuts in Missouri. We took Stephanie Bell's salary, and we actually had somebody by the name of Steve-O did some math for us. And the savings, what this tax cut will do, 5.3% down to 4.9%. With Stephanie's salary, realizing savings of, couple grand a year. So it's meaningful stuff.
It is meaningful. And I think what we heard from Senator Huff yesterday was, this is just an extension of the cuts that have already been going on for about 10 years, and they're ratcheting down. So initially, we were at 6%. So if you look at the progress Republicans have made over a longer period of time, 6 to 4.5 really is very meaningful. It's a 25% cut.
Well, that's true. And to put it a little bit more in perspective, and again, these numbers are fluctuating. I would say these numbers could change a little bit, but Kurt Erickson from the Post-Dispatch actually talked to somebody in the nonpartisan office there at the House. They're saying for somebody who earns $52,000 a year, it'd be a $66 reduction in their income tax bill. Now, that number will probably fluctuate a little bit, but that's not exactly. The governor wanted a little bit more than that, I know. And then Lincoln Huff originally wanted to send a $325 check back. I expect that number to probably stay similar, but may go up or down a little bit.
Lincoln Huff on the show yesterday. Check out the Wake Up Mid-Missouri podcast on the websites, KWOS.com, 939theeagle.com. He was here, check 7:35 hour from yesterday. Okay, so.
Someone watching right now who says it looks like you're coming to the former President Trump's defense when many, including the Atlantic recent write-up, saying that you've turned on the former president.
That's Sandra Smith, Fox. She posed that question to Bill Barr, Attorney General, worked with Trump. How did he answer? I want you to hear how he answered that. We're going to do that in a few. Then coming up 7:25-ish.
Well, a fast food trip turned into a big payday, but the law got involved.
someone watching right now who says it looks like you're coming to the former President Trump's defense when many, including the Atlantic recent write-up, saying that you've turned on the former president.
Bill Barr, former Attorney General, being interviewed on Fox, and he's saying this is in regards to the civil lawsuit filed by the New York Attorney General Letitia James yesterday. Bill Barr's answer, I thought, was pretty cool, man.
That's the way news is covered these days, as if it's a sporting event, and you're either wearing this jersey or that jersey. And the jersey, I think is specific to the facts and the truth in an individual situation.
So he's saying, listen, I'm not sure. Here's my thoughts on this. On Trump, I think Trump was wrong legally, and he gives his opinion on why he thinks Trump is wrong. People, you turned against Trump. Well, he's giving his illegal opinion. Now all of a sudden he's back in Trump's corner. Well, he's giving his legal opinion on something. So he's saying, I'm not in the can for this guy. In other words, sometimes people are wrong, and I don't care how much I support you. I gotta call it as I see it. I'm not just always I'm not waving the flag for a person. I'm waving a flag for what is legally accurate.
There are times where people may, be conducting legitimate investigations into some of Trump's actions, but this isn't one of them. And it is simply true that there are a lot of long knives out for him, and people tend to go after Trump, target him unfairly, apply different standards of justice, and when that happens, I think it has to be called out.
And he's calling that out too, so he gets points for that. By the way, Trump interview last night, Fox TV, Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity is here today at 2 o'clock, anxious to see if he gives us some behind-the-scenes info. It's 2 o'clock. This afternoon. Right now it's 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:27.
Time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Have you ever found something that wasn't yours, but you were really tempted to keep it?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Steph, have you?
I don't think so, but maybe.
I feel like the natural thing, if you found a bunch of money,
sure,
at least for half a second, you'd be like, man, this would be nice to keep.
Or like my sister had a cute pair of earrings, and I was like, you know what, I might have to go home with these.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you ever found money somewhere, and the first thing you do is look around and see if there's any cameras watching you?
Rude.
Well, one lady in Georgia went through the KFC drive-thru for lunch, got all the way back to where she was working at, and she found an envelope with $543.10.
Oops.
In the bottom of her KFC order. So she set it aside, didn't even eat her sandwich because she was afraid that there was some crime going on here. And she ended up calling the police, and they helped her return the money to KFC. I guess one of the employees had put money from the register in a food envelope, and another employee accidentally put it in with her order. And it was from the register, so the manager was going to get fired. Oh, man. So they took the money back.
She did the right thing.
She did, and all she got out of it was a free chicken sandwich.
Wait a minute, $500+.
I know.
Man, I want that. I don't want to read. But how much you say? If I find, I guess the circumstances, but if I find a $5 bill somewhere, what effort am I going to go back to return that compared to $500? The greater the amount, then we make a better effort.
Oh yeah.
If someone leaves a really nice pin on your desk.
Mm-hmm. I think under $20, you're just no one's going to be looking for that. More than that, maybe people would be looking for it.
I think the other, what I always think around here, probably any workplace, we have millions and millions of dollars worth of broadcast equipment and computers and all this stuff just out in the open. The toilet paper we keep locked up. You can't get the toilet paper. That stuff under lock and key. Computers, engineering equipment, man. Congressman Billy Long, Southwest Missouri. He's got his ear to the ground in D.C. He's going to share with you what he is hearing in the hallways there. He's joining us 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
border is secure. We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
Congressman Billy Long, 7th District Congressman, Southwest Missouri, in D.C. Is our border secure?
You know better than that. Come on. Goodness gracious.
I'm sorry for such a dumb question, sir. My bad. I should know better than. What the hell are these? What are these people thinking?
Martha's Vineyard's borders are secure, apparently, because as soon as illegals show up there, they ship them right out. Of course, they won't do that in the United States down at our border, but they'll ship them out of Martha's Vineyard. So I think we need to change the sign down there, city limits Martha's Vineyard, right when they cross over.
That's crazy. Congressman Billy Long joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle News Radio 104.5 KWOS. I'm Branden Rathert, joined by Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, Brian Houseworth, and John Marsh. Because we do want to continue to talk about the problem that this is causing. Illegal immigration it's not this nationwide issue. It is a nationwide issue, but it is affecting us right here where we live. We had a great conversation yesterday, Congressman. Columbia Police Department was in here. 25 fentanyl overdoses this year. We are on track to way surpass the number of fentanyl overdoses we had just right here in one town here in mid-Missouri. This stuff is real. How do you carry that message to people? Like, this is not just a conservative talking point. Illegal immigration is a problem. How do we make this issue real to people, sir?
Well, we had a Prevent Cancer luncheon this week in Washington where they honored Abby Blunt for all her work over the years on fighting cancer. And, the people say, everyone has been touched by cancer. And it's getting to the point where everyone has been touched by fentanyl. I know personally I have 4 friends that have lost children. One right there, found him in a hotel room in Columbia, Missouri, deceased. And it's affecting everyone, and we have to put a stop to it. And this deal of letting them bring it over the border, manufacture it in China and then bring it over up through Mexico has got to stop. People, people are losing kids, right? And when I grew up, when I was growing up, I never came home. My folks said, the Ericksons lost a child or the Carters lost their child or whatever. It just didn't happen to these drug overdoses. And 25 ODs right there in Columbia this year, like you say, it's a staggering number.
Well, and you think about, for example, you think about how, much the Democrats freaked out over COVID and, how little it affected children. And here's something that, we had a caller yesterday, a mother who lost her child. And so what can be done? We can't even get Kamala to visit the border, let alone, have a plan to how to stop this. So other than electing, Republicans in November, what can we do?
Well, this thing, and if Kamala visited the border, she would have to go down to the border and be there to see the border and be right in front of everyone standing on the border. If we sent her down there, we'd get one of her typical speeches where she repeated the same word about 17 times. Yeah. But we need to start enforcing the laws in this country, and we need to start arresting people and sending them back home when they come into this country. And that put a stop to a lot of this. But people have to be. I just walked out of a breakfast with Eric Burleson, who's going to be the new improved Billy Long, and Jason Smith and I put on a breakfast for him here this morning in Washington. And Jason's traveling all over the United States. He's going from the state of Washington to California to Rhode Island. He is nonstop trying to get good Republicans elected. And he just said that he thinks we'll pick up 38 seats, and he's in the mix more than I originally said 40, and then the way things have changed, I dropped my number down. But we've got to fight hard to pick up as many seats as we possibly can, flip these Democrat seats, and hopefully get the Democrats' attention that you're not coming back next time in 2024 if you don't help us stop this fentanyl crisis right now.
Do you feel as confident about Republicans taking over as many seats in D.C. as you did today is the last day of summer? Do you feel as confident now as you did on the first day of summer back in June?
I do not personally. Like I said, I was kind of surprised when we were talking a minute ago in that breakfast meeting when I was asking Jason in front of everyone. He was commenting on, what's going on in D.C. and what bills we're looking at and the continuing resolution to keep the government funded here before September 30. And I do not feel nearly as confident as I did several months ago for various reasons. And if you look at this abortion vote over in Kansas, I mean, that to me was a canary in the coal mine, because abortion has never been a poll driver where people, turn out to the polls on abortion. But after the overturning of Dobbs at the Supreme Court that's right here at my back, it looks like that it's going to be big. And then suburban women, if we lose suburban women, we're going to be in big trouble. So my number is, I had a number of 40 on it, and I'm more down in the 18 to 22 range right now. Jason's still at 38, so we'll see. I hope. And like I said, he's out there every single day. As soon as we get done voting today, he's going to head out to California, and he's traveling for every member he can possibly travel for to help them get elected.
So we had Mark Alford on the show earlier, and Brandon was asking him, what are your tips for Stephanie for TV? And we hear about presidents, even of different parties, they leave a letter of advice for the next president. So as you're talking, behind closed doors with, future Congressman Burleson, what are you telling him? What are you saying is this is the number one thing for you, a piece of advice about being a congressman?
Picking up the best staff you can. A lot of people have the propensity to bring friends from home. We had one congressman when I came in that brought his jeweler. I mean, a guy that sells diamonds and watches and rings to be his chief of staff. So I had a 3-hour luncheon with Eric and with Steve Helms, who's his chief of staff in the Missouri Senate. Had a 2.5-hour lunch with Mark Alford. All my staff came, the Springfield staff, and had a 2.5-hour lunch and brought him over to the office and just kind of, walking him through the paces. And when I got elected, no one told me anything. And they both have a huge advantage over what I had coming in, because I said, if you run for Congress, you want to make sure the one that was in that seat before goes home doesn't go to the Senate. And, my congressman went to the Senate, Roy Blunt. So, frankly, he'd been congressman 14 years. People didn't feel like they needed me real bad. They'd keep going to their buddy Roy, where Vicky's going home, I'm going home. So they're both going to have a clean slate, and they're going to be the go-to people for people in their district. And so I'm just like hosting that breakfast this morning for Eric, and he's coming over to my office here in a little bit, and we're going to, introduce him to my staff. And any of my staff that they want to, retain, I think they'd be very well advised to retain, because you need people that know what's going on and that can help you and keep you out of trouble. My chief of staff always said there's more chiefs in prison than there is former members. So I said there's more former chief of staffs in prison than there is former members. So he always wanted to keep his nose clean, which kept my nose clean. So you just want to make sure you follow your P's and Q's and dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure you're not doing anything that could ever be looked at to be, suspicious of nature, that you were trying to feather your own nest.
Congressman Billy Long joining. He reps Southwest Missouri. Congressman Billy Long joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I'm more interested in how Putin's going to fare, because Biden wouldn't even know he was at a poker table. He'd be like, when's lunch? But Putin's the one that's bluffing right now, I think, on, using everything at his power. But, I don't think that the president of the United States really knows what day of the week. If you saw that video of him yesterday, I don't know what he was doing. He got done with that speech, and he kind of staggered off to the right. And then he turned around, did kind of a jig step, and then he kind of, I don't know what he was thinking, but he was doing a little jig dance there for a while or something.
Congressman Billy Long hanging out with us here on the show. By the way, you can see why John Marsh picks up awards. We have on our Facebook page, he was awarded a 2022 Media Award for his outstanding contribution to public health in Missouri. This was from the Missouri Public Health Association. So you can check that out on the Facebook page. We want to congratulate John Marsh. Let me ask you probably a final question because we got to get moving forward. I know you're in D.C. We talked about your confidence on day one of the summer, here on the last day of summer, your confidence on day one of the summer going in. There's going to be a big, huge tidal wave of red people going into D.C. We don't feel that confident as we did on the first day of summer. But I don't understand why this messaging regarding the economy is just it's not landing. We're throwing these punches on the economy and how bad it is for everybody. We highlighted audio earlier from people in New York and San Francisco giving Biden really good grades on the economy. Why are our punches not landing on the economy? I mean, I think they're landing, but not as hard as they should. What's up?
I have no clue. We're talking about Charlie Kirk the other day. I think tweeted out something like grocery prices are up 13.5%. I'd like to know where he shops because I'd like to shop there. My grocery prices are more like 70% increase. I mean, I go in here to the store in my apartment and I stock up for the week, and used to be I'd get, $32 worth of stuff, and now that $32 is turned in normally into the 60s, almost double or has doubled. And I don't know what people are thinking, and maybe they're not thinking, but they're just so caught up. Everyone loves free money. Everybody loves these government handouts. Everybody loves the trillions of dollars that the Biden administration, the Democrats, have spent, and we'll see how much they love it and whether they kick out a bunch of these Democrats or whether they return them to Congress in the next Congress. But I sent Brian Hosworth some pictures there where I'm sitting, so you can see where I'm sitting here in front of the Capitol, people gathering around on the steps and things, enjoying their nation's capital, so he can take a peek at those here in a little bit. But I'm getting ready to walk in to the Commitment to America with Newt Gingrich and Kellyanne Conway here at our GOP conference, Kevin McCarthy's Commitment to America. I'm going to learn more about that. So hopefully we're trying to, explain to the American public what our commitment to America is, and whenever we get that put together, if you guys want to have me back on, I'll be glad to come back on your show.
Anytime you want. Congressman Billy Long, thank you for joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
You guys are great, and I'm glad you expanded to Mid-Missouri. When she got on the phone this morning, she said, wake up Mid-Missouri, and I said, no, wake up in Washington, D.C. That's where I woke up this morning, but I'll be back home tomorrow. My flight got canceled today. These flights are awful. Talk to you guys later.
Congressman, he's just,
He's not wrong.
Stream of consciousness, man. I love that. By the way, John, congratulations. Your award, what was that exactly? I wonder if monkeypox is going to be the next pandemic. Apparently, we've got a case of monkeypox here in mid-Missouri.
Yeah, Montauk County, where I'm at.
Yeah. More on that. How to avoid getting
The idea is that we're as we grow, as the state grows, as the economy grows, we're able to give more money back to Missourians. It's not our money. It's not the state's money. It's taxpayers' money. So
Caleb Rowden yesterday chatting with our news partners, ABC 17, tax cuts, forging ahead in Jefferson City. And these are things, matter of fact, we had a listener do some math for us. Apparently, how do we have like 3.5 of the smartest people in mid-Missouri here on the show, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and none of us are any good at math? We're trying to do the math on, okay, if we took Stephanie Bell's salary, what do we pay it at, $1 million a year?
Yep.
If we did the math.
But if you had $100,000 a year and you were paying 6%, you'd be paying $6,000, right? And that's what, right?
Yeah,
and
I think so.
I think that's right. And is that 6? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now, and that's what we were at, and it's since ratcheted down in the last for the last like 6 or 7 years. There's been a couple of tweaks, and I forget, what are we at now? 5.8 or 5.5?
Yes, I think 5.3, and it's going down to 4.9.
Okay, but we might go all the way down. There's a trigger that could put us eventually at 4 or 5. And so if you think about that, if you're making $100,000, you're going from $6,000 to $4,500. I mean, $1,500. You could buy some more bacon with that for sure.
And progressive soup and some gasoline. Now, to our, I always like to say, whenever, for example, City of Columbia, they raised water rates. Wouldn't it be cool? You go to your boss, hey, city raised water rates. I'm going to need an extra $2. Can your employer come to you? Hey, you're getting some savings from the legislative body in Missouri, so we're going to decrease your pay.
And even more, I mean, I think it's more about the collective as well. Even more than how much money is going back in our individual pockets, it's about attracting, large economic development projects, big businesses to Missouri as opposed to other states. Because when you're looking at locating or looking at trying to attract talent, people are looking at, hey, over in Tennessee, they've got no income tax. And I think that matters. And so having a low income tax rate, I think, matters for the health of our state more than I care about, the extra coin in my pocket.
Marsh, what do you know about this case of monkeypox in mid-Missouri? So transmission, direct contact with body fluids and monkeypox sores by touching. And there's a certain faction of the population that it affects. Mostly it's gay dudes that don't have sex with gay dudes that are affected with the monkeypox. That's how you avoid.
That's not the only way to get it, but abstinence is the best practice when it comes to monkeypox.
Yeah,
I think.
Abstinence, which is French for don't have sex with people affected with the monkeypox. Just don't do it. But it's here in mid-Missouri, but they're releasing these the vaccines in these big cities, and or just don't do it. Just don't put yourself in a situation to get it. What do I know? I hope you stay with us. Now, this is not common. If you were listening yesterday, and if you didn't get a chance to hear this conversation that we had with the Columbia Police Department regarding fentanyl deaths, and they said, the police department said, yep, it comes from Mexico. Fentanyl comes from China, goes to Mexico, the secure border, as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would have you believe. Then it comes here. Then it comes to mid-Missouri. It has killed 25 people just in Columbia. Now, there's a number of overdoses that we don't even know about. Last year, there were 30. This year, already 25. It was a great conversation. Check it out on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri podcast on our websites. Today, we're featuring somebody who was wrongly imprisoned for 16 years. Phenomenal story. Please stick around and hear that. But just so you know, it's not like every day at 8 o'clock, like we do these real hard-hitting things. It's just kind of the way it worked out.
Well, and it's making national news about the other guy who got out.
A minus. 50-50.
C? B plus.
A B or C?
I would give him a B.
I would give Biden a B.
He's probably getting a solid B, average, just like every other. I'd probably give a B to every president. They do their best.
I would say probably like a B, right in the middle. The things could be get better, but things could be a lot worse.
On a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, Joe Biden, I wouldn't give him a grade because he's not the only person responsible for it.
Oh, Biden. Those are people giving Biden. Those are people in New York City and in San Francisco grading Biden on the economy. They're handing out Bs and B pluses to this guy. So you've got liberals, Democrats, they think the economy's fine. And it's not. And I always wonder, who are those people that do approve of the job that Joe Biden is doing? So you've got those people that think Joe Biden is doing a good job. So what are their big issues in the upcoming election? That's my next question. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. My name is Branden Rathert. Our phone number, our text line is 874-9390. I want to introduce you to Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
That's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
Brian Hausworth is here keeping us updated on the news. And there's our award-winning John Marsh. Just picked up another award. You can see that on the Facebook page. Good morning, John. I want to highlight this story, kind of an odd story. Thank goodness I work with really cool people. My phone blows up the other day. I'm getting all these news updates. A guy by the name of Adnan Syed released from prison. And I'm like, my God, I should know this because New York Times and BBC and Fox, USA Today sending me news alerts. Who is Adnan Syed? And I'm like, I don't know, but he's been released from prison. And I'm thinking prisoner of war, political prisoner, terrorist. What the hell's going on? And then my cool bud over here, Steph, filled me in.
No, he was a high school kid who got convicted for, allegedly murdering his high school ex-girlfriend. But Serial, a popular podcast, picked up his story and kind of did a full investigation and did a series-style podcast. It was one of the very first, most popular true crime podcasts ever. And after the podcast came out, the folks there took another look at it and said, actually, yeah, the evidence kind of points the other direction. And I saw this interesting op-ed yesterday. It said, how many more Adnan Syeds are in the justice system with no journalists to advocate for them? And it really has innocence on the forefront this week.
And turns out John Marsh said, hey, we know somebody who lives here where we live, right here in mid-Missouri, who was wrongly in prison for quite some time, 16 years. He was wrongly convicted of raping his pregnant wife, causing the death of their unborn daughter. This was a lot of years ago. He went to prison. 16 years. His name is Kevin Green, lives in Jefferson City. Kevin, welcome into the show, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your story. It's a remarkable story in what happened to you. But so you were wrongly convicted. Eventually, it's DNA evidence. And am I exaggerating to say it was DNA evidence and somebody basically on death row that said, oh, by the way, I did this crime, not Kevin? Man, and by the way, we are going to be covering some heavy stuff here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And yesterday, you may have heard the Assistant Chief of Police in Columbia talking about fentanyl overdose deaths. If you're a newer listener to Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle or News Radio 104.5 KWOS, we don't do this every single day at this time. It's just the way it worked out, and we thought about moving it, but we thought this is such a remarkable story from right here in Mid-Missouri. We wanted to share it. Let me ask you this, Kevin. So, we're seeing what's happening with this serial thing and Adnan Syed. I can't imagine. First of all, let's start with this. That moment that you're convicted, you're telling everybody, I didn't do it. Your attorney is putting on one heck of a case. What is that like when it comes back? You know the truth. You know in your heart you didn't do it. And the judge says guilty. What was that moment in time like? Sure. And what is that like? So all this time, you're in prison for 16 years. By the way, San Quentin, you talk about a prison, that's like when they make movies, it's about places like San Quentin Prison in California. And then also, what is that like? You're in prison all of these years. I can't imagine the horrible things that happen in there. But knowing and thinking, America or everybody in California, my wife's family, my friends, my high school buddies, all these people that I served in the military, they think that and a lot of them I'm sure would back you and say, no, we know Kevin didn't do it. But the majority of people, you were convicted. What is that like thinking these people think I did this? Do you ever get tired of people asking you what prison was like? Okay, because yeah. All right, Kevin Green is joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, wrongly imprisoned for 16 years for an incredibly heinous crime he did not commit, cleared by DNA and somebody else eventually confessing. He's joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us live. We appreciate it. I know I've talked to you in Jefferson City several times over the years about your case, and it's good to hear your voice. Some of this is going to be a little graphic, folks, but I think you need to hear about it because we had a serial killer, and this man that's in studio with us didn't do it. This guy that actually was a serial killer, his name is Gerald Parker. He was called the Bedroom Basher. I won't go into the details, but he convicted of killing at least 6, maybe more. We will never know. We're talking about people beaten with blackboards with hammers in their head. They were raped, brutally raped. your wife, one of them, your unborn child, later died from these injuries. Now, this guy is in San Quentin right now. He argues that he was mentally disturbed at the time of the murders, and he said he was bullied as a child because he was abusing drugs and alcohol. How do you feel about that defense?
Kevin Green is our guest, and if you're a newer listener and you're tuning in, and yesterday you were listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri at the same time, and you heard the Assistant Chief of Police in Columbia talking about the exorbitant number of fentanyl deaths, fentanyl coming from Mexico that's killing little kids here in Mid-Missouri, and you're going, my gosh, this is some heavy stuff. Yeah, it is 2 days in a row. Typically not like that. Just wanted you to know. But, man, just an incredible conversation. And, Kevin, if you can hang out with us for a few more minutes, I want to talk about the number of people, because Stephanie brings up this great question. Stories like yours, wrongly imprisoned for 16 years. The guy from the Serial podcast, released from prison. How many more are out there? And I do want to touch a little bit
Although gasoline prices have turned down in recent months, they remain well above year-earlier levels, in part reflecting Russia's war against Ukraine, which has boosted prices for energy and food and has created additional upward pressure on inflation.
Jerome Powell, by the way, from the Fed. Oh, and about those gas prices, that's not holding true with what we've seen here in mid-Missouri over the past couple of days. But what does all that mean? The Fed hikes the interest rate. Stephanie Bell's going to explain that. Doing the morning bell this morning at 8:35 right now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We are joined by Kevin Green. Now, this came about, we wanted to have this gentleman on following a high-profile story, serial podcast, which has been detailing the story of a guy that a lot of folks believe was wrongly convicted. And that happened to this guy, Kevin Green, lives here where we live. 16 years in prison in California, including some time in San Quentin for a horrible crime that he was convicted of, wrongly convicted of, did not commit. And I think it brings up, and we've got a short amount of time here, and I want to get in two questions. The number of other people that this could be affecting.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned some earlier as we had this conversation with you, and luckily in Adnan Syed's situation, the journalists really dug down and did the work that other folks hadn't done. But not everyone gets that chance and gets someone interested in their case. It sounds like you were following that. Are you talking to other folks who have said, "Hey, I think I'm innocent too"? And what resources are out there for folks who are sitting in prison innocently?
We got about a minute here. 22-year-old, I assume, scared kid convicted of a horrible crime that you did not commit. You get into prison and they slam the doors. You get off the bus. What was that like? What was going through your head? Man, and to this day, do you ever? And you sound like a very confident man. You spend your time now helping other people that have been wrongly convicted. Once in a while, does some of that stuff creep back into your head? The whole ordeal. Oh God! Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yep. Kevin Green, man, thank you. We got to get you back on sometime. Wrongly convicted, 16 years in prison, free man now. Remarkable story. Coming up 5 minutes from now, that rate hike explained.
Inflation remains well above our 2% longer-run goal. Over the 12 months ending in July, total PCE prices rose 6.3%. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 4.6%.
All right, that's Jerome Powell from the Fed talking about a bunch of stuff I don't really understand. But here's what now a lot of things he said there. Here's the thing that stuck out to me the most. Is he clearing his throat or is he like mad? Like, I can't believe how bad the economy is since January the 20th, 2021. All right, Feds raised interest rates yesterday. What does it mean? That's what we're covering in today's Morning Bell. We've had to move from 8:25. Usually we do this 8:25. It's really cool. Business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you when it comes to this financial stuff, man. Stephanie knows what she is talking about. We moved it because of this great conversation we had with this guy who lives in Missouri, in prison in California for 16 years, crime he didn't commit. We might get more into that. Explain it to me like I'm 2 years old, Steph.
Well, this is the 5th straight increase, and it's the highest this rate has been since 2008. So yesterday they voted to raise the interest rate by 0.75%. But I do kind of feel like when we're talking about the interest rate hike, I feel like it's about when boomers are talking about the cloud. It gets very abstract. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Like, I abstractly, I understand what that means, but like, what does it mean to my everyday life? And I think it's interesting. I saw this article that said, hey, here's 4 ways that this could really impact you. And so they said, first of all, on your credit cards, the APR rates, which how much your interest rate you're paying on your credit cards if you're holding over a balance, that will likely go up. That's what this will affect. Also, auto financing if you're going to get a car. And while I think the car stuff is sorting itself out, I think you can actually get a new car now and, you know, those kinds of things. And some of the prices are coming down. You're going to pay more if you finance that car. Same thing for mortgages. And so I know, you know, new home building and stuff, the prices of lumber and those kinds of things are coming down and new home builds are slowing. But if you go to get a mortgage, you're going to pay a lot more. And then also they're saying variable rate loans. So, and again, what does that mean? But, you know, for example, a home equity line. So say you want to go do a quick renovation of something, you go get your home equity line of credit, you're going to pay more in that financing. And so, I mean, right now it's easy to kind of just say, well, everything's more expensive from your eggs to your bacon to your gas to your loan. But I think, you know, it's these types of things that, you know, that you're going to be paying more for.
As a matter of fact, there was a great story in today's Jefferson City News Tribune talking about what housing prices are doing here in mid-Missouri where we live. Thank you. So that's important stuff to know because, listen, to some of these, and I wish news outlets and really talk radio in general. I'm not criticizing anybody that I know personally, only people I know that I will never have face-to-face dealings with. Because that's hard. It's like being a sanctuary city. Being a sanctuary city, it's a wonderful thing until you have to actually do sanctuary city stuff, man. So, yeah, you know, talk radio, national news outlets. I wish they would do it better and do like Stephanie Bell. Here's what this means. The Feds raised the interest rate. Okay, what does that mean? Well, if you're carrying a credit card balance, it's going to impact you.
I think, Stephanie, I agree with you, Brandon, on that. And you did a great job, Stephanie, explaining that. The other point I would make is that I'm going to be interested to see what this does to CD rates and to savings accounts at banks. Because from my perspective, the big difference, we always talk about inflation, and Brandon and I definitely remember the late 70s. Actually, I remember the early 70s. Gerald
Speak
Ford.
for yourself, bud.
Yeah. You may not. I remember.
No, I remember them.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember people actually wore buttons. They said WIN, W-I-N, whip inflation now. They did it because Gerald Ford told us to do it. But the difference between particularly the late 70s and now, my 2 grandmothers, who were both poor, they lived on the interest of their bank savings accounts. The interest rate was 15%. 15%. They were poor, but you know what? They lived on the interest, and they were able to pay for their gas and their food on the interest. You can't do that now. You're lucky to go to a local bank and get if you can find a savings account or a CD more than 2%.
Good luck.
It's almost, they're actually, Great Southern Bank has one about 2.55, but actually I think that's going to go down. Very few are out there. A lot of them are under 1. Central banks, most of those are under 1. And that is the big difference. But I know it was 15%. My mother told me at one time it got up to 18%. But you could live on your interest, and they did that for a couple of years.
And Brandon, you've been talking about how the show's been a bit heavy today. So maybe we should offer some good news. And we talked about this in anticipation of the rate hike. But what it also does is it strengthens the dollar against foreign currency. And so, for example, when I was just in London, I think at some point the exchange rate was like 1 to 1.4 pounds, and right now it's like 1 to 1.1. And for the first time ever, the dollar and the euro are a 1 for 1. Not for the first time ever, but for the first time in a long time, excuse me. And so if you wanted to, for example, internationally travel, you're going to get better bang for your buck if the flight costs ever come down. But once you're over there, for your dollar, you will get a much better bang for your buck than you have in the past. And that's one good thing of the rate hike.
It's not like the good old days. I remember, and we probably all remember, you had your passport savings book.
Yep.
And you'd go to the bank.
We don't all remember that.
I can say I remember it for sure.
Marsh.
It was a passport savings thing.
Yeah, Marsh, remember those good old days? We'd go and you had your little book, and you'd put in your money, and then they would recalculate. And man, like I got 15 cents in the past month. Like, oh, I got 87 cents, and now.
And now I open up my 401k paperwork, and I don't open it. I'm like, I just don't want to know. I'm just gonna bury my head in the sand.
There was a jingle, and people can look it up. The jingle said this: Community Federal Savings and Loan, with 4 1/4 for every dollar you own at Community Federal Savings and Loan. And they played that on every Cardinal game, and that was in the 1950s and 60s. You were getting 4 1/4 at a savings account. Now, nothing like that. That I think is we're talking about the cost of living was much less then too. So that, especially people that are on fixed incomes, those accounts are something I look at. But Stephanie's information very good, especially on the travel overseas.
And I appreciate that kind of stuff when we say, here's what this means, here's what it does to us. So there's a couple of smart folks on the show. Houseworth, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah is here too.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert, and there's Mr. John Marsh. Oh, my gosh. Well, and I wonder, and here was the cool thing as a kid, as I'm thinking about how, and by the way, savings account bank rates, they've been poor for a long time. But here, and I wonder if kids even do this anymore, because when you were a kid and you could go and you take your little book and you put in and you could see interest. It was growing. And as a kid, that was impactful. Like, okay, I am seeing how this works. I see the value. I see the benefit in saving money because I can see the interest growing and growing and growing. And if you can't see that in a savings account anymore, I can imagine some, 8-year-old kid who's been saving money, raking leaves here. One of her fall starts in less than 12 hours, by the way, raking leaves and putting some money in. But Mom, I've had my money in this account for 12 months and I've only earned 1 penny. Like, what's the incentive?
It's a ballpark estimate, because I watch it closely. It's about 0.08, if that, for a savings account. Now, you can get a little bit more than that on a CD, but you have to shop around on those. They've gone up a little bit. There are a couple of banks right now that are around 1. But like I said, it's not like it was before. And on those savings accounts for these kids raking leaves, you were making 4%, if you will, back in the 60s. So, I mean, that helped. That was a big deal. And the cost of living.
Well, you could see it. You could see it.
Absolutely.
You can't see it anymore.
At this point, your odds are better of just driving through the KC drive-thru and hoping someone leaves a bag of cash accidentally.
What's Hot with Hannah? Something we do every morning, 7:25. Great story this morning that she featured.
Yeah, a lady just went to get lunch at KFC in the drive-thru, got all the way back to work, and there was a fat stack of cash in the bottom of her chicken sandwich.
And she returned it, right thing to do. And the manager at the KFC didn't lose their job. But I'd be like, I paid for that, right? I paid for the goods in there. I want to go back to this Kevin Green story. What a remarkable story. I wish we could have sat and talked to this guy like forever. There's this Adnan Syed released after he'd been in prison for a while. Now, nobody is saying yet he's wrongly been convicted, but he's been released from prison. And Marsh says, hey, I know this guy, Kevin Green. He lives here in town. He came on the show wrongly convicted of a crime in which his wife was beaten to within an inch of her life. She was pregnant. Baby died. This guy, Kevin, who was just on our show, he goes to prison for 16 years. And then what? Because we've got some text, 874-9390, 874-9390. Such a good guest about this. And by the way, I do want to let folks know, some heavy stuff 2 days in a row. That's typically not how Wake Up Mid-Missouri rolls, but both very good guests, this and yesterday's guest, talking about fentanyl overdoses and how it's affecting kids here in Mid-Missouri. But we got a lot of questions, John. Did Kevin, and we could have talked forever. There's a million things we could have talked about. Did he ever get any compensation? Yeah, it's such a neat story, and I love his attitude. So he goes to prison as a 22-year-old kid who knows he is not going to prison convicted of the crime, killing an unborn baby. You know what that's like in prison? I don't either, but I can imagine. And he's very open about that, and he says, what really scared me about prison was the cockroaches. So I love he's got a sense of humor about it. Sounds like his head is on straight, and he uses that experience to help other people. Jake, via text, 874-9390. Kevin Green is actually a damn fine car salesman, too. Top 3 that I've dealt with, without a doubt. Jake, thank you for that, and we appreciate Kevin Green coming on to our show. Coming up, we're going to peek in the refrigerator here and see This because, at your house, you get in the fridge and sometimes leftovers. Oh, look, I got a leftover steak from last night. I didn't eat all of it. Or, oh, look, I got some stir fry from the first day of summer that I never got to. You never know what you're going to find in leftovers. Stephanie Bell, what's in your fridge this morning?
Well, I was on Mizzou's campus yesterday, and I saw the big sign for the Next Gen, the Roy Blunt Next Gen Mizzou building going up. And it reminded me earlier this week, there was actually a dedication of the, let me see if I can get the name right, the Roy Blunt Center for Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementias Research, and that's on the NIH campus in Maryland. So he not only has a building here in Columbia, but we'll have that building. And, we've talked about Alzheimer's before. We talked about fentanyl today, things that affect cancer, things that affect everybody. And I think, everyone I know in my life have been affected by dementia and Alzheimer's, and that research is so important. So to know that, our own Missouri senator is being honored, and especially in respect to that really important topic, I think is cool.
New poll, KRCG has been a CBS affiliate, has been doing some polling here locally, which I think are one of the TV stations taking part in polling across Missouri. Polls for what they are worth. Most Missourians favor marijuana legalization, and I think that's something we've all been on board with for a long time. We agree over 60, if we believe the polls. They also say Trump would win Missouri. I believe that. So do we believe just some polls?
As long as they reinforce my own beliefs.
Yes. Fist bump. John, what do you got for leftovers today? Man. And this is a true story. We talk about some of this silliness. I want to be referred to as the boss here. But nobody, that's what I choose to be identified as. But Stephanie, how come you don't call me the boss?
Because you're not my boss.
That's right. I'm not a boss. That's why I don't get identified as the boss. Yeah. The Air Force Academy Diversity Training. They're telling cadets, drop all the genders. It's diversity and inclusive training by the United States Air Force. They're telling cadets use words that include all genders. So in other words, don't say my mom or my dad. I know.
You can't use the words dudes and chicks.
John, can you talk about your dad being in the Air Force? My parental unit was in the Air Force, too, man. This is just crazy. That's real stuff. And I want to mention this, even though we actually did cover it in the Daily DC Rundown, Stephanie uncovered a pretty interesting find as it related to the electoral procedure, basically. And there were some House members who did vote in favor of the Electoral Reform Act. And basically, this is just kind of ceremonial stuff, I guess, basically, and uncovered this little gem.
The 9 Republicans that voted in favor of it are magically not on the ballot in November. So either they've already been defeated in their primaries, or they chose not to run, so they don't have to face the music for that vote in November. And I think they would be out of step with a lot of voters on some of these issues. Also, in Cole County, did you see how they're looking at those houses that we were talking about earlier? So they've released, I guess, some of the structural assessments, and it's just, you drive down that street and you can, in your mind, you can picture what it looked like 50, 80 years ago and how beautiful those homes were, and it's just, it's devastating.
These are the homes on Capitol that have been in ill repair. The tornado didn't help us any.
Yeah, and I'm not a historical preservationist, really. I mean, I enjoy people who do that, but I don't know the specifics. And I'm hoping for at least the ones where the structure is bad, can they preserve some of the elements? And do we have people out there who can then take some of those original elements and then, incorporate them into new builds such that we would, kind of, it would be a nod to some of those beautiful homes.
Man, haven't we done a lot with it? The prison over there? We can save that entire prison building. Can't we do the same with some homes? I need to go before Jefferson City Council and talk to Mr. Deacon and Mr. Scott Spencer, Ron Fitzwater, who we proposed our idea to the other day. And that is, man, let's bring in, can't we bring in one of these reality home improvement shows, where they gut your home and then fix it up? Because then, twofold, we get it done for free, very little cost to you, the taxpayer. And we get some coverage on national TV, some favorable coverage for Mid-Missouri.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but like reality TV is kind of fake news.
All right. Okay, so we're going to burst it. Our show is done. My dad, he's getting excited. It is his favorite part of the day. Gary Nolan show is coming up. We'll see you tomorrow here on a Feel Good Friday. See ya.
Bye.